Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. And thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this morning, we shall be looking at a comment that was made by PJ Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica. And he was suggesting here it was published in the Jamaica Observer, I should say. And it was written by Arthur Hall, editor at large there at the Jamaica Observer. And the title is suggesting here that voter apathy, a threat to Jamaica's democracy. And that is what were the words of Patterson. It says former Prime Minister of Jamaica, PJ Patterson, is calling for a close look at measures which can be implemented to deal with the apathy which has greeted recent national elections as it is posing a threat to the country's democracy. Wow. And I said, is that true? Is it that voter apathy is posing a threat to Jamaica's democracy? Or is it political corruption that is posing a threat to Jamaica's democracy? Is it the lack of education that has been supported by the politicians? Because in their quest to receive votes, they have dumbed down the population, and it is not their effort to improve on the quality of education on the island. Is that the threat, or is that the thought of non-progressive, unprogressive political maneuvering that is a threat to Jamaica's democracy? I would like to know, because sometimes our politicians tend to think that they have identified the problems, and then they have the solutions for the problems that afflict modern Jamaica. But I would dare to say that political corruption stands at the top. And he was Prime Minister for 3 terms. So I think that former Prime Minister of Jamaica, PJ Patterson, understands that. Now, listen to what he's saying. That's Mr. PJ Patterson. It must be of concern when we see declining voter turnout. It should be something of concern to both major political parties and indeed to the entire country, because we are failing to convert into actual meaning something universal adult suffrage that is so fundamental to our progress as a country, Patterson told the Jamaica Observer in a recent exclusive interview. Yes, and we cannot deny the fact that we need to celebrate what our forefathers, have left for us, that tradition of universal adult suffrage, because we understand that once we were able to vote, because the colonial forces would not allow us to, we were seen as inferiors. We were seen as people who did not have the rights to vote for or elected representatives. However, since the colonial masters have left, our people, in terms of the descendants of slaves, have taken over, and they have not acted that much differently, right? They have been behaving as queens and kings, right? Look at what we're calling our prime ministers today. We're calling them the most honorable. I remember reading just recently the Patterson report on the education situation in Jamaica. And he just kept on, that's Patterson, Orlando Patterson kept on referring to the Prime Minister, which he is. I can't blame Orlando Patterson for that. But this constant and the most honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness, the most honorable. And I'm like, what is this most honorable about him? And we should respect our government, but why did we decide to allow our governments to be getting honorable and the most honorable? They should not have that title. They should not bear that title, Prime Minister or President, and in the case of Jamaica, they are Prime Minister. So Prime Minister Andrew Holness, or, Vice, what we call them, Deputy Prime Minister, whomever that person is, it's sufficient. Those titles are sufficient, right? We cannot run around calling our Prime Ministers most honorable and honorable, especially when they're not honorable and most honorable. It sounds to me like a monarchy. And I think that most of our prime ministers and presidents in Western societies are, in fact, monarchies. They are not elected representatives. When they come into power, they behave as if they are in charge, and the people did not send them to power. That is what is the threat to democracies in the Western world. Not only in Jamaica, but we're also seeing that also in the United States of America. So Patterson says more and more people feel it doesn't matter how I vote. My life is not going to change, and there's a level of individual materialism that no matter what, no matter which government is in power, I'm going to be all right, added Patterson. I don't think that people think that they're going to be all right. I think people think that no matter what government is in power, it's not going to make a difference in their lives, right? That is what people think, whether they're poor or they're rich. They think that no matter what prime minister comes to office in Jamaica, their lives do not change. And that is true. And if we're looking at the Andrew Holness's government and we see the level of corruption in that government from 2016 and the number of people who we had to dismiss from office or who had to resign as a result of corruption, it sinks to high heaven. When we look, for example, at the former Minister of Education, Royal Reid, and what he did in office, and nothing has become of it, really. And there was also another former minister who was in charge of Petrojam, I'm forgetting his name right now, right? All of these people who have been alleged to have stolen funds, to have swindled funds from these ministers, and nothing has become of these ministers. The people of Jamaica have not gotten any justice, and it can go on and on and on and on. The corruption charges go on and on and on, right? And there is absolutely no sort of remorse, and no justice is forthcoming. Now, you tell me, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson, don't you think that the people are going to have voter apathy? Apathy because of the corruption. Another reason why there's apathy is that our leaders, because of corruption again, are not inspirational leaders. They say something and they do another thing. Everything is done behind closed doors, and Jamaicans are not included in the democratic process. I give you, for example, recently, the whole decision, for example, for Jamaica to have participated in this Haitian Presidential Council, were Jamaicans, consulted before that process was made? And what was their decision? Right? Did they all, or did most of the people in Jamaica, did the majority decide that they wanted to go into Haiti, to send our soldiers into Haiti, and to form a part of that, Haitian Presidential Council? I would like to know if that is so, because I think it was not so. I think Andrew Holness, along with his ministers, decided that they would go that route or that route. And the fact of the matter is that Jamaicans were not consulted. So what sort of democracy are we living in, Mr. Patterson? And that is what we need to ask. I think that democracy that you're talking about is that maintenance of the status quo. That is what you are talking about. He charged that too many Jamaicans do not understand that the fight for universal adult suffrage, which was granted in November 1944, meant that for the first time, every adult in Jamaica would be able to participate in the choice of government. Yeah, but if we participate in the choice of government and nothing fundamental changes, then what's the purpose? Because the purpose of government is to protect and also to ensure that its people live a decent life, right? And since adult suffrage and since our independence in 1962, most of Jamaicans have not been protected. They don't feel a sense of security in their own country. And we have not grown the economy for people to enjoy a certain standard of living. So what is the purpose? Mr. Patterson, you can say anything because you're enjoying a great retirement, right? And you're living a phenomenal life. So you can say anything and you can talk and you can begin to anchor your faith in your ideologies. But people are living real lives. They're not living in the ivory tower as you are living in. And that is something that we've got to understand, which I don't think many of our intellectuals and our, get rich quick politicians understand. Now, there was something he said here, Mr. Patterson is now speaking. We are not being taught enough about ourselves, who we are, the struggles we have undertaken, and really giving some sense of purpose, and I would almost say of value, charged Patterson. We have to say, yes, we have not been taught much about ourselves, but we also have to be taught about ourselves in terms of what the recent crop of politicians, right, has done to move us back into slavery, right? So often we talk about what happened during slavery and how the British were terrible and they were slave masters. And we begin to say it's only people of European descent who are people who have that inclination to enslave. But I dare challenge anyone that anybody, any human being, all of us have that inclination if given that opportunity to enslave. And we just have to watch what our politicians have done since 1962. And the fact that where we are now as a people, we are fast going back to the plantations if we're not yet on it. I don't think we have been taken off the plantations. Yes, the shackles have gone, but mentally, we are still enslaved as a people, right? And that can only come through education and economic independence, right? And that is why Norman Manley said that, our generation has given Jamaica political independence, and he charged the subsequent generation to give and others to give Jamaica economic independence, because without economic independence, we literally are not free. Got to have economic independence. And that is why land was such an important thing and still remains an important element in terms of where we're going. Our resources are very, very important. And when we see like the Chinese and the Americans and other people coming to the country and they're buying up our properties and buying up all these very important resources, you know that we are going back to slavery, right? We know that we are heading back to the days of slavery, right? And we've got to look at these things. And that is why, Mr. Patterson, many of our people have voter apathy. And when you have this voter apathy, it is a serious crisis. And we're not downplaying here what Mr. Patterson is suggesting, that it is of serious concern. It is of grave preoccupation, and that we need to pay some attention to what is happening in terms of that fact of apathy. The difference that we have with Mr. Patterson is the fact that what are the root causes of voter apathy in Jamaica? It's not just about voting, right? Just cast your vote. It means much more than that, because that is just something that one does every 4 or 5 years, right? But the government has to lead. The government has to inspire. And the government of Jamaica has not led, neither has it inspired since we've gotten our independence in 1962 from Great Britain. They have not behaved much differently from our colonial and slave masters. And that is what is causing voter apathy. And we've got to understand it, and we've got to lay the axe at the root and begin to uproot that system of the politicians feeling as if they're superior to the masses of people on the island, because that is how they feel and that is how they behave. Many of them have gone into politics very poor, right? Coming from the bowels of the working class, right? As former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Portia Simpson-Miller said, right? She came from the bowels of the working class, like many Jamaican politicians. And as soon as they go into office, they are enriched overnight. And they're living in big houses, big mansions in the hills, right? And feeling as if they are way above the people. Now, Jamaica has many parallels with Haiti. And I've said that often on this channel, and I'm saying it unapologetically, that we have a lot of parallels with what is happening in Haiti. It is voter apathy in Haiti that has caused the gangs to take over. And whether you like it or not, there are gangs in Haiti. There are persons saying that there are no gangs, and the media might be putting its swing on the gangs and the interpretation of the gangs and how the gangs rose up. Right. So there are differences in terms of our perception of how did the gangs come to have taken over and who controls these gangs. Yes, there might be differences in terms of that perception. However, there are gangs. So we can't live in this reality that there are no gangs. Somebody contacted me yesterday to tell me that, oh, you are misinformed because there are no gangs in Haiti. Haiti has gangs. Jamaica has gangs. Because when there is a void of leadership and people are selfish and they want all, eventually you're going to have, different feelings of anger, and people are going to have countercultural revolutions and so forth and so on, right? And Haiti is experiencing that now, where for many years it has had voter apathy, particularly after the coup that ousted the democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. And I am not sure, I have not yet done the history in Jamaica, a study of the history in terms of voter apathy in Jamaica and what year it might have been where we started to have demonstrated voter apathy. But what I'm suggesting here is that we are in serious problem, a serious crisis like Haiti, because if we continue and voter apathy continues to augment in Jamaica, it means therefore that very soon the gangs also will take over and we will have to be invaded and taken over by foreign countries. And we know when these things happen, what is going to be the case. Because no foreign government is going to treat you like kings and queens, right? They are going to treat you like slaves, right? Or government, or Jamaican government, the most honorable Andrew Holness and the most honorable this and that, are already treating us as slaves. So imagine that a government from another part of the world would come to Jamaica, or governments, joint efforts, because what we're seeing now are joint efforts. So let us say that other foreign governments are going to Jamaica. Do you think they're going to treat you like kings and queens or like decent people? No, they're not. They are going to abuse you. They're going to mistreat you. And that is what it's all about, right? And that I told you about the Global Fragility Act, and you've got to do your research on that, because some of these things are also contrived, they are manufactured, and if we do not understand how to maneuver and how to get out of these complex and difficult situations, we are going to end up like our neighbor, Haiti, right? As much as we think that, oh, it's only France. Yeah, it's only France. France is the only culpable entity in this situation that Haiti finds itself. However, we also, as I've already said on this channel, I've always said it, I've always mentioned that our local elites are equally culpable. And we have to hold them to account, because if we do not hold them accountable, then we are going to end up in the situation like Haiti finds itself. How often do I have to repeat that? Right? And if Jamaicans begin to repeat that every day, they'll understand that they have to hold their government accountable for the levels of these high levels of corruption charges that we see evident on the island. So, Mr. Patterson, much respect to you, sir, and much respect to your political wisdom. Yeah, but I must disagree with you. I have to disagree. I'm compelled, sir, to disagree with you that voter apathy and just the mere fact of going to elect a president, cannot be the only threat to our democracy. I think the gravest threat is the fact of political corruption and the fact that our political authorities are really not leading morally, ethically, nor in any way democratically, right? They are the threat to our democracy. Can we have a discussion? Can we have town hall meetings where people are free to express themselves and where the press is also willing to expose corruption charges because the Gleaner and the Observer are not doing a fantastic job. That's another thing that's a threat to our democracy. The press, right? That should be the watchdog for the common man and watchdog for freedoms are not doing or is not doing a good job at the moment. The Gleaner does a terrible job, a horrible job of reporting the news, and they literally have no investigative journalism. They practice no form of investigative journalism. We're just seeing he said, she said, and that's all that the Jamaica Gleaner and Jamaica Observer gives, right? They do not give any sort of in-depth reporting on anything in Jamaica, right? And then they want to subscribe. They want to pay your money to subscribe to the Gleaner. Subscribe to what? Subscribe to what? Gleaner and Observer. Well, Observer doesn't ask to subscribe, but the Gleaner, you're not doing the reporting that you normally did in former years. You are dead, right? The Gleaner is a dead paper. There's nothing really to chew on when you open that newspaper on a daily basis. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And why don't they get some reporters, some journalists in training from the University of the West Indies or from other universities on the island to sort of give their perspective? But you know what? They won't. Because when I write something and I send it to the Gleaner, if it is not within the narrative that the Gleaner wants to have, it's not going to be published, right? Because you have to talk the nonsense and you have to be under that ideology and agree with that sort of narrative that's coming from mainstream, right? It's almost like a secular religion, just like what you have in the United States press, because they too are not free. When we fool ourselves that the United States lives in this, free society where they have a robust press and, people are getting information that they should be getting. That also is not true, right? Their press is also corporately run and controlled, right? And so is our press in Jamaica and the wider Western world, I should say. So, Mr. Patterson, please do your research, do more reading, and try to critically analyze and assess what is happening in Jamaica. I mean, I expect our politicians at the age of Mr. Patterson, I think Mr. Patterson is now 88 years old. You have also the former Prime Minister Bruce Golding. When they speak, you're not hearing from them the wisdom that you expect to come from elder statesmen, right? I'm not hearing that from them. They're just, giving some superficial assessment and analysis of what is happening in Jamaica. Time for you guys to come up with something that when you speak, people want to listen. All right, because I'm not just impressed with titles and positions. I'm impressed with what comes from the mouth of the man, right? And what is he thinking? And can he think? And it's time now that we elevate the level of thinking and the level of conversation coming out of Jamaica in terms of forwarding solutions for our intractable problems. Thank you so much for joining. Look forward to seeing you in another video as we continue to speak courageously on matters of interest. Thank you so much. All the best to you. Bye-bye.